Good afternoon, monkeys. Welcome to another episode in our Coaster Monkey Studios channel. What we've got here for you today is a new series. This one's called RCT Classic, for those of you who've played it. Back in 1999, when I first came across it, RCT Classic, RCT was the game of the decade. So this is RCT Classic for iPad. I've been playing this now for over a year. Pretty stoked as to what I've been doing here, and I figured I'd start sharing some of my techniques, tips, and tricks with you guys. So that's what this series is. It's a series about sharing my ideas, and hopefully giving you some ideas to develop your overall technique as well to make better parks. You know, I mean, hey, we're all stuck inside. You might as well enjoy this, right? So, as you can see here, I've got quite a few on my channel already. Videos of my travel, a vlog, or whatever the case may be. So this is something a little bit different. It's not something I typically do on my channel, but since we are stuck inside, you know, I figured I'd bring this to the table. Now, in order to support the continued development of this, I do have a Patreon channel, and that's called our Patreon page. That is Coaster Monkey Studios. You can find me on Patreon, and the link is in the bio, the description below, as well as in my bio. Again, any support is greatly appreciated, and the more people that donate, you guys will be first and foremost to be notated, mentioned, and will help develop this overall series, as well as future trips in which I'll be taking to travel to the United States and visit these theme parks. So every little bit helps, and I am totally appreciative and grateful. So with that being said, here we are making our Entryway Plaza. As you can see, this is an entry building, you know, typical to anything that you would see at a park. You walk into a massive building. This is where people go in and they, you know, buy their tickets, get their park maps, go to guest relations, and that's what I wanted to do here. I made it a multi-level building, so I pictured almost like a city walk type deal. On the second floor is maybe a restaurant with a balcony that overlooks the park, and, you know, just something different, right? Now, there are different techniques that I use here. The balcony technique is one of them. I love doing balconies. I do quite a few of them throughout the park, which you'll see within the future episodes, as well as the towers there on the corners. I do a lot of towers as well, so you'll see quite a few of those. But I definitely love the whole balcony idea, and especially in an Entryway Plaza area, I like to do a lot of this like bell tower type look. This is something you'll see mostly in my train stations that I create, with a very specific type of feel, right? Because that's what we want to have here. We want to be very specific in the direction we're going for our Entryway Plaza, because this is the smack in the face that your guest is going to get when they walk into your park, right? I love building Entryway Plazas too. I feel like it's such a great experience when you walk into a park and you have this statement that the park is making about, you know, who they are or what they're about. You know, I think about my trip to Busch Gardens, Tampa. When you walk in, it's very quaint, it's very closed in, it's very tight, and then it opens up into this grand plaza, and it really makes you feel like you're in a Moroccan city or a Moroccan town outside of the United States, and you're not in Tampa, Florida, you know? And that's the whole idea. So with this, I went with a, you know, very generic USA type city or feel, and I wanted it to have a very clean look. I went with the pink as a statement color because, well, nobody ever uses pink. And to be honest with you, pink is a great color. So, chose that as my main color for the park. You'll notice there are sprinkles of this throughout the park. Now, in this portion here, I'm building out our entryway fountains and entryway areas because I figure, you know, I think about a plaza and Six Flags Great Adventure comes to mind. When you first walk through those security gates, you know, you walk down their main street and there's this massive fountain in the center that they decorate for Halloween, they decorate for Christmas, you know, so that's what I wanted to create here, just an entryway statement water feature, because, I mean, why not, you know? If you're gonna spend time in this plaza doing the shopping or maybe grabbing food or souvenirs, you know, why not have something that's unique and stands out? And fiddling with these fountains here was just so much fun too. I love doing fountain work. Now, as you can see, I'm kind of, planning out the direction that the pathways are going to go. Obviously one in each direction. And I wanted to make it not, completely asymmetrical, but in the same breath have, again, that same familiar sense that every building is connected in one way or another in the way that it's built. And what I mean by that is the style that we're going after. We use this brick as the basis. We also use the white stucco as well as layers of pink in there as well. And it gives a really great variety, but still gives the same feeling. Now, as you'll notice here, what I'm doing is I'm putting in our souvenir shops and our food shops. And what I'm doing is I'm recessing them in. So this way, as I build the building on top of them and around them, there's going to be an entryway where you walk into that building to visit these particular shops. But you won't see that as a person playing the game, because we want to hide the RCT-esque souvenir shops and buildings. They're tacky. You know what I mean? I like covering them up. There's only one time I use them, and that's when I'm trying to create a very vintage type feel or have it be like a very carnival-esque type environment or amusement park environment. More amusement park, less theme park. This is theme park, right? So we want our buildings to surround these souvenir shops, to surround these food stalls and cover them so we can create our own theme. And that's the whole point of this game, right? And that's really what you're going to get from this series. You're going to get a lot of training, a lot of tips and tricks on how to create a theme park. Now, the whole point is to create a theme park and get your rating up to $9.99 and keep it there. And that's the theme that we're going to run throughout this entire series. How do we keep it at $9.99 rating, or get it there and keep it there, right? So that's what we're going to do. It's all about taking your theming pieces and really elevating that overall guest experience. Now, as you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of spinning, a lot of, projecting, pulling the camera in, pulling the camera out, because I want to get an overall micro look from a guest perspective, but then a macro look from a, quote unquote God perspective, right? What does it look like from the top down, and what does it look like from the bottom up? And this is a really great technique that helps me keep a very clear eye on the direction that I'm building. So I'm doing these buildings in a macro form and an individual basis, but I'm pulling together a macro look, right? An overall look of our park. This is actually my favorite tree in the game too. You'll notice I use this a lot when I'm trying to create statement buildings or buildings that really stand out. I love this French fir. I believe it's a French fir, if that's the name of it. And this is the other technique I'll use here too. I want you to see this. I make flower boxes and balconies that surround those flower boxes. And this, again, it will help elevate your overall rating and drive your customer excitement level when they're in the park, and their happiness as they're walking through. They're excited to see this theming, and you'll see that becomes one of your top comments, that the theming in the park is really beautiful. I tend to win awards in the game for most beautiful park in the country, quote unquote, and this is something I want you to think about as you're building out your parks. Like, what are the different techniques that you can use? Maybe take some of my techniques, right? And make them yours. And that's the whole point of this entire series, right? I want to give you ideas, but I don't want you to mimic me or copy me, right? Because then life would be boring if we were all the same, right? Enjoy it. Have fun with it. That's really, at the end of the day, what I want you to get out of this. Have fun with what we're creating here. And I want you to see me have fun, because if I'm not having fun, then what's the point of me doing this in the first place, right? I want you guys to feel that excitement level that I feel. And I hope it translates in the game too. Clearly, I'm very excited right now, as you can tell. All right, so another technique I use here, as you can see, I build out a first floor, put in a second floor with a base block, and then build my second floor on top of it. Now, if you look in my menu right there, there is a target on there. Now, that target is very useful. When you see that target pop up, that means that you can isolate at what level you want to build your pieces on, all right? Whether it be first level, second level, third level, so on and so forth. Now, if you've ever seen a Planet Coaster video, you'll know what I'm talking about when it comes to identifying a height that you want to build at, right? But if you haven't, I'm going to create a video number 6, I believe it is, that I have already posted. And you're going to check out that video and kind of see how you build that. And I do that through building the monorail station that we're going to have in this Entryway Plaza. I do a tutorial video on how to build at different heights. I know you look at the different layers and, that I use here, the different materials that I use. It gives your park substance and it raises the overall excitement level of your guests and happiness of your guests as well, when you're not using the same thing and it becomes too matchy-matchy. And that's something that I tend to fall into. I get into a rhythm and a pattern, and I become too matchy-matchy, and then it's like, okay, well, this is boring, right? So you don't want to become boring. All right, and now something that you'll see about me is I tend to throw in a lot of maintenance guys, a lot of mechanics, and security guys, you know, because we're doing this with no money. And again, there's a scenario editor that I'm going to do at a later episode where I'll teach you how to create a scenario. And essentially what you're looking at right here is a scenario that I created where there's no money. Money doesn't exist. So I'm able to build to my heart's content and show you guys how I build. And that's really the whole point, right? I wanted to make sure that you had a platform to go off of, and I didn't have any restrictions. Now, message me, comment it below if you want to see me do a scenario where there's money and how I navigate that. Maybe I can do actual game scenarios. Comment below, tell me what you think. If you think those are something you want to see, I'd love to do that. All right, so here as we progress now, as you can see, I did one side of our Entryway Plaza. Now the opposite side is going to be basically the same thing, but reversed, right? So I wanted it, again, to have a similar feel, but not be too matchy-matchy. And you'll see that I wound up putting an observation tower at the top of one, just to give it a little bit of depth. But yeah, to help increase that excitement rating, you know, the more pieces you put in, the happier your guests are. And that's a little tip and trick I can tell you from an AI standpoint, how they view your park. All right, now, one thing I want you to notice, just a minute ago there, I put in a bunch of benches, I put in a bunch of lampposts, garbage pails. Now, this is, again, to help, you know, increase our guests' happiness, right? We put in all these food outlets, but they have nowhere to sit and eat, and that's what they tend to do, or they'll end up doing here. The garbage cans also help increase your overall cleanliness in the park, and then the lampposts help increase your overall guest happiness and their impression of your park. So keep that in mind as you're building out your pathways. All right, now this is another technique I use. I'll put in an observation tower with a balcony that goes around. I love using these canopies too. The canopies really help you define spaces by color. Another technique that I utilize, you'll notice with my souvenir stalls, is I will make the balloons, I'll make the t-shirts, I'll make the hats the same color as the specific areas. This way I can identify where my guests are going and they're the most happy. So then I can turn around and make edits to maybe areas that I'm not seeing as much of that same color, right? To increase that overall guest happiness. Just a little tip and trick for you as well. Now here we are building out what will be, in a future episode, the station, the train station for our monorail. So you'll notice here, I'm just throwing this in. You know, I do love the way this comes out, but it winds up completely changing anyway. But just so you can get an idea of, again, you know, keeping the continuity of the style as I create this building and close off the entire Entryway Plaza. It's a very clean look. And that's the whole idea. You want it to be polished, you want it to be clean, you want it to be all fulfilling to the eye, right? So no empty spaces. That's probably the best advice I can give you. Make sure there are no empty spaces. You don't see any green grass underneath by itself. So every single square should have something in it, but don't be overwhelming. And you'll see as the series progresses how we do that by putting in more trees, by putting in bushes. Maybe it's about a water feature, maybe it's about pathway, maybe it's about putting in a building where, you know, there's nothing inside of it, it's just a building, right? And this is the idea I want you to keep in mind is you're developing your scenery and your overall theme, right? This is how you're going to increase your guests' happiness and be more successful as a creator. Here I am just trying to figure out now, what am I going to do with the two flanking sides? And this is what I always run into. I have a really great idea for the center, but then I'm just not sure what the sides are going to look like. You know, and I'll be honest with you, everyone always asks me, like, how do you come up with this stuff? Like, how do you create it? And in all honesty, I just go with the flow. What works, works. If it doesn't work, I delete it and I do something else. You know, and that's how I want you guys to think. You know, don't feel so bogged down like, oh, I've got to make it look a certain way, because then you're not having fun. You're not enjoying it, right? Go slow, take your time, and experiment. This comes from, wow, 20 years of experimentation in this game, because that's how long I've been playing it, since 1999, right? So keep that in mind as you're moving forward in your creations. You know, how do you experiment? How do you just let go and have fun? But there we are at the end of this video, guys. There's your Entryway Plaza. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember, Coaster Monkey Studios on YouTube. We've got our Patreon set up now, so please, you know, every donation helps, and the more Patreons we have, the more I'm able to shout you guys out and give you exclusives. Yeah, so thanks again, and catch you guys later.